That's a massive move. But we didn't get the euphoria. We didn't get a parabola on the upside this bull cycle. Is it likely that we get, a really deep depression on the downside this bear market? I'm not convinced of that. And so that's why I've got a target like, down 60% or maybe down a little bit less than that, right around 50K. That seems to make sense, but it could exceed that on the downside. You got to be prepared for that. Now, I am short Bitcoin. Maybe I'm talking my book a little bit, but I really do think that 50K is a decent level to be closing shorts on BTC. Let's take a look at alts. We've got a lot of alts to get through, so you better get ready because these things could accelerate to the downside again as we're getting close on a lot of alts to the weekly lows from last week. Break the weekly lows from last week, and we could see a re-acceleration to the downside. Let's take a look at ETH. So the thing for ETH is we did not get real euphoria on the way up this cycle. So this move, you could call it the Tom Lee move, the Bitmine bounce or something like that. Here's the depression. Here's the Bitmine bounce. We never really got euphoria up here. Like I remember when ETH was at $4,900, $4,800, people were actually like not euphoric, almost afraid. And it turned out to be a double top. So on the way down, it would not surprise me if we see a double bottom also. Because if Bitcoin moves to 50K, then I think it's really unlikely that you would see ETH break support or hold support, excuse me. If Bitcoin moves to 50, I don't see how ETH could hold 1600 support. So that would mean, maybe we get down to 1100 on ETH, maybe even lower. But I think this makes sense for Ethereum down here at like $1,200. That would be a further move to the downside of roughly 40%. So there's still plenty of meat on the bone on the short side on ETH. You don't need to use any leverage. Leverage on an asset with 80% volatility like ETH has is asking for trouble. So just don't use leverage. And if you don't use any leverage, well, what happens if you're wrong? Maybe you give up 10%. But if you use leverage and ETH bounces by 10%, that's a 20% erosion of your margin. So you've just got to be super careful around leverage here. And look, there's nothing wrong with a 40% gain. No leverage needed. Let's take a look at Solana. Now, Solana has started to accelerate lower just over the last couple of hours here. And this is actually a pretty ugly pattern that Solana has put in here. So this is a clear head and shoulders pattern. We've got the left shoulder here. We've got the head here. We've got the right shoulder here. If we just draw out a measured move, you could say it's something like this. So it is almost in the art of the beholder a little bit, but this is a bearish price action pattern, very bearish.